Who created the Creator? This question sounds powerful because it appears to challenge belief in God at its foundation. Many people hear it and assume it exposes a flaw in religious thinking. If everything has a creator, then God must have one to right. The question feels logical, simple, and decisive. But its strength comes not from correct reasoning, but from a misunderstanding of what God actually means in philosophical and logical terms. The reason this question feels convincing is because human experience teaches us that things inside the universe have causes. Buildings have builders. Paintings have painters. Trees grow from seeds. We live in a world of cause and effect. So the mind automatically applies this rule to everything. However, applying a rule without examining its limits is where logic breaks down. The universe itself is not just another object inside reality, it is the totality of physical existence. Explaining it requires a different kind of reasoning. Before asking who created God, we must define what God is claimed to be. In classical theology, including Islamic philosophy, God is not described as a created object within the universe. God is defined as eternal, uncaused, independent, and necessary. These qualities are not added arbitrarily. They are required by logic to explain why anything exists at all. If God were created, dependent, or temporary, then he would not be God, but merely another part of the universe needing explanation. Everything we observe in the universe shares one common trait. It is contingent. This means it depends on something else to exist. Humans depend on parents. Planets depend on stars. Stars depend on physical laws. Physical laws depend on the existence of space, time, and matter. This chain of dependence cannot logically go on forever, because an endless chain of dependent things never explains why the chain exists in the first place. An infinite regress does not solve the problem of existence, it only postpones it. If every link in the chain needs a previous link to exist, and there is no first link, then nothing would ever exist. For anything to exist now, there must be a starting point that does not depend on anything else. Logic demands a stopping point, something that exists by necessity, not by cause. This is what philosophers call a necessary being, and what believers call God. Some people respond by saying that perhaps the universe itself is eternal and uncaused. But modern science shows that the universe had a beginning. Space, time, matter, and energy all came into existence. Even philosophically, calling the universe eternal does not explain why it exists. It simply labels the mystery instead of solving it. The question of existence does not disappear by renaming it. There is a crucial difference between asking what caused something within the universe and asking why the universe exists at all. When we ask who built a house, we assume materials already existed, but the universe includes all materials, all time, and all space. Explaining it requires something beyond it. That explanation cannot be another physical thing, because physical things are part of what needs explaining. If God required a creator, then that creator would be more powerful, more fundamental, and more deserving of the title God. This leads to an endless loop that never answers the original question. To avoid this infinite regress, logic requires one uncaused cause. This is not special pleading. It is logical necessity. The claim is not that everything has a cause, but that everything that begins to exist has a cause. God, by definition, does not begin to exist. A helpful analogy is a line of dominoes falling. Each domino knocks over the next. But unless there is a first push, nothing happens. Asking who pushed the hand that pushed the first domino misunderstands the point. The first push must come from something that is not itself pushed. God is that initiator of existence. Time itself is part of the universe. Before the universe existed, time did not exist. So asking who created God assumes God exists inside time with a before and after. This is like asking what is north of the North Pole. The question assumes a framework that does not apply. God is not inside time. Time is part of creation. Some critics argue that invoking God is just filling a gap in knowledge, but this argument is not based on ignorance. It is based on logic. No matter how much science advances, it will always describe how the universe behaves, not why it exists at all. Science explains processes within reality. It does not explain why reality exists in the first place. Atheism often responds by saying the universe exists without explanation, or that no explanation is needed. But this undermines rational thinking itself. If the universe needs no explanation, then nothing needs explanation. The principle that things must have sufficient reason collapses. Belief in an uncaused creator preserves logical consistency rather than abandoning it. The question who created the creator feels appealing because it gives a sense of intellectual victory. It sounds clever and dismissive, but clever arguments can still be wrong if they are built on false assumptions. This question assumes God is a created object, when God is defined precisely as the uncreated source of all creation. The real question is not who created God, but whether an uncaused eternal reality is more reasonable than an uncaused universe or an infinite chain of causes. When framed correctly, belief in God is not illogical, it is the most coherent explanation available. Believers do not claim that everything has a creator. They claim that everything dependent has a cause, and that God is independent. Once this distinction is understood, the objection dissolves. The question no longer challenges belief in God, it misunderstands it. This discussion is not just intellectual, it shapes how we see meaning, morality, and purpose. If there is an eternal, intelligent source of reality, then life has objective meaning and accountability. If there is not, then existence is ultimately accidental and indifferent. The question reaches far beyond debate. Ironically, the very intuition behind the question proves its weakness. Humans instinctively know that created things require explanation. That intuition points beyond the universe, not against God. The real unanswered question is not who created the creator, but why does anything exist at all? God is not an answer that stops thinking. God is the answer that makes thinking possible. In the end, the question who created the creator is not a refutation of belief in God. It is a misunderstanding of what God is claimed to be. Once we distinguish between dependent and independent existence, the logic becomes clear. God was not created because creation itself requires God. And the real challenge is not explaining God, but explaining reality without Him.